Good morning to those of you on the West Coast with me, and good afternoon to everybody else, and good evening and wherever else you are, maybe in the worst of the world. Let's get started. My name is Zach Einerson. I am the client engagement lead here at SafeAbroad. I'm joined by a few colleagues. I think Nolan, everyone knows Nolan. He's famous. We will go ahead and get started. I'll let Nolan and Caroline introduce themselves and get moving on, but other people will join. We will have time to ask any questions. Feel free to use the chat to ask any questions as we go along. We can address them either as we go along or at the end, and definitely unmute yourself at the end and certainly raise any concerns or questions you may have. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Hey everyone, how's it going? My name's Nolan Perrin, and I'm the operations manager here at SafeAbroad. These are just some of the incidents we'll be covering that took place over the last month, and as well as some future events coming up. On the right-hand side there, you can see also some of the other great work we've been doing here at SafeAbroad, working on reports that highlight different issues that affect student travelers, including the 2026 annual report, where we took an in-depth look at many of the key trends based on regions of events that was going on in the world last year that impacted student travelers, as well as did a little forecasting about some future events as well. So with that being said, let's get into it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Yan. I am an intelligence program manager here at SafeAbroad. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about these nationwide farmer protests in Greece. So this happened on January 7th and 8th in Greece. It was a 48-hour blockade. And this did end on January 13th. The blockade officials did meet with the government, but it was a pretty intense blockade. They did block a lot of highways and caused a lot of transportation disruption. And over here you have a picture of one of the actual conferences that they hosted to like figure this out with the government. And you could see like there's a little fire, like it did get pretty intense. And we advised our travelers to expect major delays in travel and to confirm routes before departure. Okay, so I'm also going to talk to you guys about the anti-U.S. protests in Havana, Cuba. So this happened on January 16th, and we're specifically shining a light on this one because this was, I think, probably one of the largest in the world. This had tens of thousands of Cubans in this protest, and this was a protest that took place outside the U.S. Embassy in Havana. This was in regards to the Venezuela incident from the United States, and these protesters demanded justice for President Maduro and the 32 Cuban officers that were killed. And this did result in clashes between the US and Cuban forces. And we advise travelers to avoid protest areas, maintain situational awareness at all times. And we did note that demonstrations are likely to turn violent, that travelers should remain vigilant. And here we have a picture of from that protest. Also, on January 18th, we saw a high-speed train crash in Spain. And this was really interesting because Spain does boast a lot about their high-speed train tracks, but since then, a lot of the speed limits have been reduced. So this did disrupt train service for 2 days after that crash. It took the lives of 45 people and caused severe disruption. And after that, we did see another incident in Spain regards to high-speed train incidents as well. And so a lot of the trains in Spain have reduced their speed limit, which is causing a lot of disruption. And travelers were advised to confirm travel arrangements. They were also advised to monitor their train providers' websites. And this is the specific train incident that we're talking about here. It did derail and its lead carriages fell off the track off a 13-foot slope.
Yeah, so January 26th was Republic Day in India, with the largest celebrations taking place in New Delhi. The parade was the center of this event, which brought disruptions to both travel and prompted heightened security as well throughout the city. So Republic Day celebrates the implementation of the Indian Constitution, which transformed India from a colony to a working and fully functional independent government. The day is celebrated nationwide, but the parade there draws, and this year they drew 77,000 people that attended this audience. Um, it also attracted world leaders as well, including notably Ursula von der Leyen, the EU president, which in turn prompted the heightened security throughout the city. That heightened security and those measures included road closures, random ID checks, and extra officers deployed in downtown near the parade site, both during the event and during the week leading up to the event. So travelers were advised to follow official directives, and they were also advised to build in extra time whenever they were traveling through or around downtown New Delhi.
And then on January, hi everyone, my name is Caroline, by the way. I'm the project manager here at Safe Abroad. And on January 26th in Australia, we saw two large protests, one being the Australia Day March, which coincided with a large-scale anti-immigration protest that took place on that day. And then in order to counter that protest and express pro-Indigenous activism, there was a quote-unquote Invasion Day counter protest that was arranged. This drew thousands of participants on both sides and took place across urban centers all across Australia. So it wasn't just concentrated in Sydney or Brisbane. There was some minor clashes between individuals and the groups, but overall, very few arrests. The most concerning incident that happened during these protests was that what was considered to potentially be an explosive device was thrown into a crowd of Invasion Day protesters. I do believe it was later discovered to not be an explosive device, but at the time there was concern of possible harm due to the device. So at the time, Safe Abroad travelers were advised to avoid any protest areas or areas along the protest march, plan alternate routes, and anticipate heightened security across urban centers due to these protests.
Staying in Australia and even during that same time frame, much of Australia was experiencing a prolonged heat wave, which impacted large swaths of the country. It brought extreme temperatures to many of the nation's largest cities. So those main areas affected were the central and southeastern states, including Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, and Queensland, and all the major cities involved, such as Melbourne, Sydney, Canberra, etc. Temperatures kept rising until they peaked on January 27 at around a scorching 122 degrees Fahrenheit in certain locations. This was a pretty unusual event for both due to its longevity and its maximum temperatures. Temperatures still remained high overnight as well. The Australian Bureau of Meteorology called it the most severe heat wave in the last 16 years. And travelers should also note that extreme heat is the most common weather-related source of hospitalizations in Australia. Not only did this affect everyday life, it also affected several high-profile events, specifically sporting events. The Australian Open was taking place at the time, and they had to close down several outdoor courts, as well as the Tour Down Under cycling race had to change routes due to the heat wave. So travelers were advised to limit their time outside during the hottest parts of the day, and they were also advised to remain hydrated.
Awesome. So now we're going to talk about the anti-U.S. protests that went global after January 3rd on the U.S. operation in Venezuela. So from January 3rd to 5th, we saw thousands of protesters start protesting outside U.S. embassies and consulates around the world. Here I have noted some countries. A lot of these countries, primarily in their capitals, we did see a lot of protests around the embassies and consulates around the world. I think in the United Kingdom we did see it a little bit more, and in Spain we did see it in Barcelona and Valencia as well. But the rest of these, it's typically just their capitals and major cities. But we did see like thousands of protesters gathering outside of embassies, primarily to protest the United States and their Operation Venezuela. We did advise travelers to avoid the protest areas and to constantly maintain situational awareness and to monitor local media for updates. And here we have specifically the protesters outside of Greece, where they did end up burning the American flag.
Now moving into the month ahead. So, of course, the big event, or one of the big events this month, are the Winter Olympics, which start up this Friday, and they will heighten existing travel challenges in northern Italy and bring an increased security presence as well. The games are estimated to attract around 2 million people. That's not only spectators of the actual events themselves, but also of the festivities surrounding the events. Large crowds are expected to increase travel delays, especially on public transportation. Notably, on public transportation, too, there will be an increased security presence, including security checks at train stations and other transportation hubs. Traffic restrictions and site closures will be implemented. Especially utilizing what are designated called red zones, where no pedestrians or vehicles will be allowed to enter these zones. They will vary depending on location and time. Additional officers from multiple nations will also be deployed. 6,000 officers are being sent to Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo. And those officers include mainly Italian, but also supporting U.S. and Qatari officers as well. And notably with that, travelers should watch out also for protests against ICE at these locations as well. We're starting to see this as well. So far, they've remained relatively small, but non-violent at this time. It should be noted that they are in a supporting role during this event with no arrest authorities. So at this time, travelers are advised to maintain awareness when they are in large crowds, and they should also maintain flexible itineraries due to delays and closures that are possible throughout these northern states during this time.
And we're seeing quite a few quite major holidays taking place over the course of this next month. The first of which will be the Lunar New Year, also known as the Spring Festival and Chinese New Year. This is spread all across, celebrated all across East and Southeast Asia. And although the actual date of the Lunar New Year is on February 17th, most celebrations take place during the full week before and after the Lunar New Year takes place, and most of the time those are also public holidays. So celebrations will occur during that entire week. It's considered one of the largest holidays of the year in all of these countries: China, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea, Taiwan, and Indonesia. So people in all of these countries, great opportunity to experience local culture, but there's also a number of things that they should be aware of while attending these events, or if they're just in the country, not necessarily attending celebrations. The first element is that there's a lot of extensive domestic travel associated with these events. So that doesn't necessarily cause a security risk, but that means that obviously transport measures, particularly public transport, might see increased volume. It might be more difficult and travel delays might follow. Also, you'll see that internal transport systems within countries tend to get a little bit more expensive during the Lunar New Year, and general travel delays and heightened security are expected across all of these countries during these celebrations. We typically don't see terrorist attacks during the Lunar New Year, but it is, as a large gathering of people, a possible target. So even though it's not a heightened risk and no country has mentioned it as a heightened risk, it's something that travelers should be aware of. Additionally, pickpocketing is possible in these large crowds, so people should be aware of their belongings, and to be advised that all safe abroad travelers should maintain their awareness, be aware of the symptoms and signs of crowd crush, and especially be mindful of local laws.
February 13th through 21 is Carnival as well, another major holiday and celebration with events circulating around Rio de Janeiro. It'll take place February 13th through 21, and of course, draw up very large crowds, which will lead to travel disruptions. Festivities will take place not only during the day of, but throughout the week, which involves large parades, street performances, and parties called blocos. Terror attacks are unlikely at this time, but clashes are possible with police during festivities. Keep in mind the size of the crowds at these events, raising the low but existing risk of this. So travel disruptions and heightened security are expected at this time, and travelers are advised to maintain awareness whenever they're in large crowds and to be aware of the signs of crowd crush, and as well as keep personal belongings close to their persons. Heading back to Italy. So on February 27th to 28th, there will be a rail strike by train workers, which are expected to cause large-scale disruptions and delays to train services throughout Italy. Both the train and onboard staff members of the FS group are going to go on strike. Included in the FS group, which is the state-owned train holding company of Italy, is Train Italia, the nation's largest train service provider. Regional, high-speed, and intercity trains are expected to all be impacted. Just to give an idea of the size of this event and possible delays, roughly 2.87 million people take regional trains daily in Italy. So delays are expected to be exacerbated as well by the weekend date of the strike and the lingering crowds from the Winter Olympics through Italy. So SafeAbroad travelers are advised to secure alternate transportation in advance. And lastly, we're finishing up with Holi. So celebrations are expected to cause major travel disruptions during the day and the night of March 4. These celebrations, of course, will vary by region and city, but they also include, and you can see there, powder throwing, which can unfortunately damage clothing and items, but it is a very festive time and it's to be expected. Planned road closures and traffic diversions are expected to cause travel disruptions, like previously stated, in those major cities such as New Delhi and Mumbai. And heightened security is also expected during this time. So travelers near these celebrations should protect their belongings that they do not want to be damaged or destroyed potentially during these celebrations. And they should also expect travel delays. So lastly, they should monitor local media for updates on those road closures and plan ahead for possible road closures.
All right. Thanks so much for all of that. It's great. We'll open it up to any questions. So please utilize the chat if you have any questions. And you can also unmute yourself. What you see on your screen, we've got an overview of our services. One thing I wanted to point out in the chat, I did leave a link to schedule a meeting with me and meet with us generally in SafeAbroad to go into more detail about how we can support your institution, your office, your students, as well as a link to future events. As hopefully many of you know, we have these monthly events, but we also have webinars or community chats. The next one coming up in 2 weeks, I believe, on the 20th. We'll be talking about digital threats and kind of new fraud risks and things like that. So look forward to it, and hopefully all of you can attend. But we'll be here for another few minutes if you have any questions. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.